What's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you to the Academic Wave Show with your host, Marcus Johnson, aka MJ. We're at Academic Wave, where smart is the new cool. And on today's show, we have three powerful young brothers bringing it the only way that Academic Wave knows how to bring it, to select 5 different books for educators and administrators to help us sharpen our knowledge and skill set. So to start off with, I'd like to introduce my first guest. He goes by the name of Dr. Devin Walker, hailing from University of Wisconsin and the University of Texas, where he is currently the Director of Global Leadership and Social Impact during his postdoc. Say what's up to the people, Devin.
What's going on? What's going on, folks? Excited to be here.
Thank you very much, fam. We appreciate it. Next up, second guest on the show, we have hailing from, and he might say this more than any other place, the University of North Carolina, A&T, also representing Ohio State and the University of Texas. He is currently an assistant professor at the College of Education at University of Texas, San Antonio, Dr. Langston Clark. Say what's up to people, Dr. Langston Clark.
Hey, everybody, how y'all doing today?
Very cool, very cool. And definitely, last but not least, we have my main man, Dr. Anthony Johnson, hailing from TCU as well as the University of Arizona. He is currently the program manager at Crowley ISD, Destination Diploma. Say what's up to the people, Dr. Anthony Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here.
All right, very cool. So we are just gonna lay out some game. We're gonna talk some books. Part of why I even thought of this topic is because a lot of times when I run across people, especially guest speakers or keynotes, or anybody I run across, and I respect their knowledge, I respect the game, I respect the position that they're in. One way that I could tap into how they're thinking is to ask what they are reading. So here we're gonna sort of provide the platform, provide the opportunity for us to soak up some game as far as some reading that we can do during this time. So first up, Dr. Walker, what do you have for us, family?
I wanted to start off with a historical piece, just to ground people in history and education in this country. So I went with Ebony and Ivy. That's my first choice. What y'all think? Okay, not too much applause. Got it. But yeah, man, this basically just ties the connection between colonialism, between slavery and institutions of higher education, specifically the Ivy League schools. It's just important foundational piece, man, to understand any level of education we talk about. If you're talking about working with students of color, this is a foundational piece because it helps orient our own frameworks and ways we think about difference in other people, mainly Black, Indigenous, Asian, whomever.
Oh, all right, very cool, very cool. Next up, Dr. Clark, what you have for us, fam?
So I went to AERA in 2019, and I think I picked this book up there, but it's by Dr. Ivy Tolson, and it's No BS, BS meaning bad stats. Black people need people who believe in people enough not to believe every bad thing they hear about Black people. That's a long title. Ooh. When you think about it, like it makes a lot of sense. And basically what Dr. Tolson does here is he lays out some things that may seem to be counterintuitive about, some of the negative stats that we hear about, Black folk, and things aren't necessarily as bad as they seem. And it takes like these deficit orientations we have about Black children and Black families from an educational perspective and kind of flips them upside down. So he provides a different narrative, a different way of looking at and thinking about statistics that are typically used to say that there's something wrong with Black children, and say that let's think twice about that. And it's really good, a really good foundational piece, I think, for rethinking how we think about the education of children who aren't privileged.
Gotcha. All right.
I heard that brother speak, man, at that Ohio State Black male retreat, and he was on some of that same stuff. He was definitely challenging some of my own understandings of Black people and Blackness, which I really appreciated.
That's what's up. That's what's up. All right. Dr. Johnson, what you holding up for us, fam?
My program, we do a lot of stuff that has to do with both college readiness and also intervention, and we do a whole lot of full service school type like programs and processes. So one of the things that I always try and get my people to read, especially like when we're doing like book clubs for the new people and stuff like that, is White Architects of Black Education by William H. Watkins. And the reason that that particular book always stands out to me is because it kind of alludes to the foundation pieces as to how white people thought about how Black people should be educated, especially when they started trying to make class stratification, where you said, okay, there was one group of Black people that are supposed to lead the other Black people into prosperity, AKA being able to appreciate, you know, what white people do for them. So it's got a lot to do with like the foundational pieces of how the HBCUs were originally set up as land grant colleges and stuff like that. And so it's really important, I think, to always know where our foundation pieces come from, especially when it really starts coming to, okay, what did they really think about us? Were they really, you know, everybody talks about, you know, what Du Bois did, but before that, they were really on some, we need to train Black people. We need a group of Black people that can train Black people on how to be like domestics and how to be able to be compliant in white public and how to be able to deal with, you know, post slavery and how to deal with, like, you know, how to be a good Jim Crow Negro. So it's always important to me to look at it from there.
Oh, man. All right, there we go. Round one already bringing heat. All right, we're gonna go.
That book.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's something you can't really just go by. Go for it, man.
Oh my God, I can't tell the whole story for that book. But Devin, Marcus and I, MJ and I have a common former professor, mentor, what have you, named Anthony Brown.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so Anthony, you know him too. All right, so you know, at UT, if you go to Dr. Brown's office, you know, you might have a question about class or whatever, but he's gonna send you away with like 3 books. And like, that's what he does. What Devin is doing, that's exactly what he does. He'll stack you up with the books and tell you need to go read those books.
Devil, not a hard, you know what I'm saying, book to follow, but go ahead, brother. You next up. What do you have for round 2?
I'm next up. Y'all made me potentially rethink my next round. But man, since it's here, man, I had to go with the new Jim Crow. Man, it's just fundamental towards, unfortunately, it's fundamental towards Black life in this country. The idea of incarceration and limited mobility. Man, it's at the core of control, man. It is limiting what a person can see, do, and experience. So obviously you see that with a plantation, you see that with slave passes, and you currently see it today when, you know, you drive in a car in the wrong neighborhood, the little Black girl's at a pool in some part of Dallas, Texas, and she gets body slammed by the cops because she's not supposed to be there, right? So central to like social oppression and control, I believe, is controlling one's mobility, and in jail, of course, being put in a 3x6 cell is unfortunately how we do it the best in this country. So the new Jim Crow, man, just really gives us an opportunity to trace how interconnected the Black experience is to the criminal justice system, to the carceral state, to modern day police forms. So it's another ugly book, probably similar to White Architects of Black Education. Man, but it's fundamental to understanding how knowledge is passed on from one generation to the next for Black Americans. Because if you don't understand this history, you don't understand when we talk about driving while Black and how of a real thing it is for people. But like a lot of that is passed on, like, you know, word of mouth you got from your grandparents and your uncles and your cousins. And if damn near everybody you know has had a similar or shared experience, right? It's something that you don't have to prove anymore. It's just it's a fact. It's a way of being.
All right, next up, Dr. Clark, what do you have for us, fam?
This is a book that I'm currently reading, and it's I don't know if any of my selections are in my top 5, but because there's tons of books I read, but this one is appropriate, and I think it goes to what the other brother Johnson was talking about as far as having a book club, because I have a book club of my own. And so for this month, I'm reading Strategic Planning for Black Folk by Dr. Dorian Williams Sr. He's a local author here in San Antonio. And it's interesting. And I think about it like as an educator trying to make it relevant to this conversation. What things do we get taught in school, right? We get taught history, hopefully, right? Math, science, reading, arithmetic. If you have a good physical education teacher, maybe, you know, you'll learn how to, you know, take care of your body through physical activity. But I don't think anyone ever taught me how to think strategically in school. Like, I don't know if I ever got any formal training on strategizing, you know, just anything about how to get from point A to point B in a formal way. And I think so much of strategic thinking is left for people to figure out how to do it intuitively, but there are so many ways that you can figure out how to be more sharp about it. So I think that this is good for educators, not only for their own development, like especially if you're a Black educator, Black administrator, but also to think about like, how do you integrate strategic thinking into the way you're educating Black students? And I think behavior management is in a lot of ways about strategic thinking, right? Because if you can get children to think about and understand consequences of their actions and figure out how to get what they want out of their behaviors and do it strategically, I think we would alleviate some of the issues that we have misperceiving, right, students' behaviors, or even just like helping students navigate life, navigate adults, right? Because students, they got to navigate us, right? As much as they have to navigate our behaviors as much as we have to navigate theirs. And I think it's a good skill to develop at a young age.
This book that I usually have my staff people read is The Art of Verbal Judo, The Power of Verbal Persuasion by Dr. George Thompson. And the reason that I always have them read this particular book is because of the populations that we work with. You know, like Crowley's a hodgepodge of socioeconomics. You will have the bougie Black kid and in the hood white kid, and then you'll have the bougie Latino, and then you'll have the hood Black kid, and then you'll have the hood Asian kid and the hood and the Asian kid whose family is real traditional, all of them mixed together. And fortunately, you know, like in our particular school, you know, they all are usually in the same classrooms, and they all arguing, they all cussing and carrying on. And, you know, like, and a lot of the teachers are coming from, a lot of the teachers that we work with and a lot of people that we work with, they're not part of that organic ecosystem that the kids are a part of. So you have to figure out ways to be able to communicate the stuff that you need the kids to understand about you and the stuff that you need to understand about the kids, and getting the kids to understand how they need to communicate better. Because, you know, like sometimes you match aggression for aggression. I mean, you've been in my spot, so you see how it goes. You see how it gets down. You know, sometimes you matching aggression for aggression, and then other times you like say, man, you got to use your words. And then other times, you know, like the one teacher can get a kid who never cusses at them, you know, ever to, you know, like one teacher can communicate with the same kid where the kid is like, yes, ma'am, no, sir, and all that. And then that same kid, you go down the hallway, one class period later, you hear, and it's the same child. So you gotta worry about how you gonna like work with those kids. And as an administrator, because I've been a dean of students as well, you know, being able to work with the teachers and the students to be able to communicate with each other better as well. So I think that's like one of my favorite books, because, you know, it's valuable in what we do.
Thanks, bro. Okay. All right. Next up, Devo, what you have for us, fam?
Hey, FYI, I've been getting my push-ups in during this call. Y'all see a boy come back winded to the screen, that's why. Man, so this is for educators, right? All right, for the student, for everybody, I really want to throw home going in here. I love this book. It gives us some knowledge about what the African experience was like pre-slavery but since we're going with educators, I'm gonna go with the pedagogy of the oppressed. I think my first two books it was really important to historicize America and to historicize the Black experience and the Black student experience. Now, this in terms of answers, right? Oftentimes I think people want to get to answers before they really understand the problem. So I historicize the books to help people understand the problem. And then now we get into some problem posing. How do you help liberate your students within the classroom? And within any sort of schooling environment, schooling space, it doesn't matter if you're in the classroom or if you're an administrator, you should read this book. It's about power, control, liberation, thinking, problem solving, social entrepreneurship. It's got all that in it. It's a bunch of tools, but for me, I think the thing I take the most is this idea of problem posing versus a banking style of education. And in banking, you just receive what you're told by the teacher or whoever has the power in the room. And problem posing is more of a collection of everybody's knowledge in the classroom, but also a collection of what people are experiencing in the classroom, what are they experiencing in the world, and that determining the most interesting and relevant content to talk about and to study and to hopefully problem solve around, right? Like what are the actual issues and challenges that people are actually facing? And how do you help the people who are experiencing that liberate themselves?
So for me, a book that I think a lot of administrators or people who work in programs within higher ed or maybe in transition programs between high school and higher education is a book by Tony Dungy called The Mentor Leader. And I actually got this book from one of my mentors, Dr. James Brown, the godfather of physics at the University of Texas.
Godfather.
And it's got some religious tones and whatnot to it, but it's not something I think would turn someone off who's not very religious or anything like that. But what I appreciate about it is that one, sometimes we take for granted the continued need for character development and character education, right? So I'm thinking back at my own experience, like when did character education begin and end for me? And I think like after elementary school, we're not talking about character anymore, unless it's like commitment in sports, you know what I mean? And even then it's not necessarily the same as like truth and honesty and becoming a better person in terms of being committed to doing the right thing outside of the context of winning a game. And I think those are some of the themes that are talked about in this book in the way that we think about what it means to be a mentor. And so there's one sentence, one statement in this book that changed the way I thought about what it means to be a leader. And Tony Dungy says that the leader isn't necessarily the person who's in charge. And I think when we talk about being an administrator, when we talk about being a school leader, I think it's important to recognize that, you know, there may be people who are in the hierarchy beneath you, or don't have the role that you have, don't have the power that you have, who are actually the leaders in the organization. And that might be okay, because they're the people that students go to with issues. They're the people that, you know, other faculty members or staff members go to when they're dealing with personal issues, or they're trying to figure out ways how to best communicate with students. Or even it may be someone who's beneath you that's trying to figure out a way to manage up, right, with the administrator. And I think identifying those people and helping those people recognize who they are and help other people recognize how they can become mentor leaders is something that's necessary and crucial in any organization, particularly when we think about the need for our character education to be something that continues throughout our life.
All right, Dr. Johnson, what you have for us, bro?
Okay. My next book is called There Are No Children Here by Alex Koltwitz. And basically it is about the life experiences of these kids that lived in Cabrini Green apartments. The reason that I liked the book was because for somebody who might be going into education, who had never dealt with, who's never really dealt with like real urban issues, this is like a good book for them to read, because it really talks about like some real challenges that the kids have. The reason that I've had some of my people, my interns read the book is because, have you ever heard of the poem Ain't Got No Pencil?
I haven't heard that one.
Well, it's basically a narrative about this kid who his teacher's pissed off because he doesn't have a pencil, but his mom's not at home, so he's trying to take care of his little sister, and they trying to get dressed in the dark because they don't have no lights, they don't have any food, they don't have any of these other resources that are going to help that kid become stable enough where education is going to be important. And they basically talks about his exhausting life that all happens before 9 o'clock in the morning, and then talking about this is why I ain't got no damn pencil. And so the reason that There Are No Children Here is valuable is for, I think that all people, whether they're going into administration or whether they're going into teaching in an urban ed environment, like a real urban environment, like where no matter what, because a lot of us that work in these environments, we're visitors. We're not people that live in that environment. We don't go to church there. We don't eat, we don't buy groceries there. We don't do anything there except for teach, get gas, and buy fast food in the area if we got time. That's the only thing that we're doing. And so, like for a lot of my white colleagues, I had them read this because it was like, okay, this is an eye opener to, this is the life of the kids that you want to have, that you want to be working with. This is why this dude's 13 and he sounds like he's 45 years old because he's stressed out. This is why this girl, knows more about, knows all about, sexual temptation because she's been dealing with it since she was 11 years old. It talks about all of that kind of stuff, and that's why it's valuable.
Heavy. All right, Dr. John. Okay. As you can see, we really get into it. We have 2 more books each to go through. Next up, Dr. Walker.
All right, man. I gotta go.